866-967-6887. And what we're going to talk about right now is the issue of same-sex marriage and a couple of major decisions that are ahead for the Supreme Court. With us to discuss the subject is Angela Giampolo, founder of Giampolo Law Group, and her practice focuses on LGBT law, corporate transactions, civil rights, employment discrimination, real estate, domestic and international adoptions, and estate planning and administration. Angela, what law school did you go to?
Hi, Louise. How are you? I went to Temple right here in Philadelphia.
And I'm sure Temple is proud of you. You certainly cover the map.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that Edie Windsor, the plaintiff in the Doma case, is a Temple alum as well. So we're proud of her.
So anyway, really terrific to have you with us to talk about this subject, Angela. And
Thank you.
You are. Tell me what you do in relation to
Sure.
LGBT law and the Doma case and the Proposition 8 case in particular.
Sure. So I've had my law firm for about 5 years now on my own, and when I originally started my law firm, the idea or the concept was to gear my practice towards the LGBT community for all their legal needs that have nothing to do with the fact that we're gay. Right. I mean, we own businesses, we own real estate. We have people who pass away that we need to administer their estate. Gay people live in this society, similar to their straight counterparts, and there weren't any law firms just gearing towards the LGBT community for all of the other legal needs. But in the first couple of years of my practice, I became acutely aware of the fact that I couldn't separate out and ignore the legal nuances that are so specific to the LGBT community. And I'm also French Canadian, dual citizen of the U.S. and Canada, and living here since 1998. We have two sets of laws. We have gay law and straight law. And so over the years, I've just become a huge LGBT advocate to really eradicate that difference of gay law and straight law and just have the law that everyone in this country follows.
So we're learning a poll that was reported by Reuters. 55% of those surveyed said that married gay and lesbian couples should be able to qualify for Social Security survivor payments and other benefits provided to married heterosexual couples. And the Reuters polled almost 3,000 people between March 5th and March 14th. To what do you attribute the shift in opinion on this subject?
It's been a rapid, I think, evolution of social and political mores. And first and foremost, I guess I would attribute it to the age groups and the millennials who, when we started polling on this topic about 10 years ago, they were much younger, and now those millennials are between the ages of 25 and, let's say, 32. So they had the most drastic increase. It went from 17% 10 years ago were millennials, and now out of all the millennials that are polled, 70% favor same-sex marriage. So I think as children that are being raised in same-sex households and more people are coming out over the last 20, 30 years, I think that has a huge part to do with the evolution. And I also think, that when we have national leaders that everyone respects and admires, like Bill Clinton and Obama and Hillary Clinton and now even Republican senators coming out in favor of same-sex marriage or LGBT equality, rather, I think that has a huge impact on the country nationwide.
I'm speaking with Angela Giampolo, who is founder of Giampolo Law Group, and you're based in Philadelphia, Angela?
I am, yep, Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
And so do you have a lot of clients who come to you with these issues?
Absolutely. I mean, I like I said, I service the entire LGBT community for for legal needs that have nothing to do with being gay, but on a daily basis, people call either having been discriminated against, fired. Most of the country doesn't even realize this, but in Pennsylvania, and we're soon to be the only state in the Northeast left, I could go into the Palomar Hotel or any hotel and be denied public accommodation because I'm a lesbian.
Oh, that's really amazing. But the state law in the state of Pennsylvania defends that.
Exactly. We have no anti-discrimination laws in Pennsylvania, so it's been incumbent upon the municipalities. So I'm lucky and thankful that I live in Philadelphia County, one of the 20 some odd municipalities that enacted their own anti-discrimination and LGBT protection laws. But on a daily basis, I get calls from clients and they say, Angela, I was discriminated against and fired because I'm gay. And my first question has to be, well, what municipality are you from? Because if it's one of the ones that did not enact laws on its own, if they're in one of those other 40 some odd municipalities, there's nothing I can do for them. Their boss could literally come in and say, you're fired because you're a lesbian, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to help them.
I'm speaking with Angela Giampolo. This is Louise Schiavone with you on POTUS On Call. Our Twitter handle is at POTUS On Call. Give us a shout out if you want to on Twitter. And the number here, 866-96-POTUS, 866-967-6887. What do you think, listeners? Do you think that Proposition 8 should be overturned? The Defense of Marriage Act should be overturned? Yes or no? Why? Give us a call at 866-967-6887. Now, let's talk about what specifically the Supreme Court has to do this coming week.
Sure. So there are going to be 2 days of hearings, and you mentioned to your listeners, both of them, there's going to be oral arguments on the DOMA case and then oral arguments on the Prop 8 case. So to make it clear for your listeners, those are two very, very different cases, but together they holistically deal with the issue of same-sex marriage. The DOMA case only deals with the federal issue, the federal question of how do we define marriage at the federal level. So Section 3 of DOMA is the only thing before the Supreme Court on that day. And then the following day we have the Prop 8 case, the California Supreme Court case that defines marriage as between a man and a woman, but whether or not the state can define it for itself, whether it's unconstitutional for a state to define marriage as between a man and a woman. So between the two cases, the Supreme Court will be dealing with the entire universe, if you will, of same-sex marriage.
What are the practical implications of the Defense of Marriage Act?
So to make it really tangible, last year alone, we know of at least 9,000 same-sex couple inheritance tax returns that were filed. Okay, so and out of those 9,000, 40 survivor of the two had to pay over $4 million in inheritance tax returns alone. So if you figure 40 couples are the survivor of one, 40 times 4 million, we're looking at 160 million just right there last year. And DOMA itself has been around for 17 years. And it's not just a financial, impact that it's had. It's had social, legal, psychological ramifications on LGBT couples for the last 17 years.
And now the Proposition 8 case, what kind of an impact is that Proposition 8 having in the state of California?
That's a very interesting one, and very different because, at the federal level, for these 17 years that we've had this, there have been 1,138 federal rights that we don't have as gay married people. So similarly in California, even if you were able to get married in 2008 when it was legal there for a second, those people still didn't have the federal rights. But what's interesting about California is, and what's really at the heart of the matter at the Prop 8 case, is you had a state like California that gave a right to its people and said, we believe that gay people should be able to get married, and here you go, you have that right. And then it went to the polls, and through the ballot initiative, through Prop 8, the people decided, we don't actually think that, and therefore we're changing our minds and we're taking it back. And the Supreme Court, the state of California, did that. So for the several months that gay marriage was legal, you had about 18,000 people who depended on the state of California conferring upon, its people a right. They went and got married. So in California, there are actually 18,000 couples that were able to get married, but now no longer are able to get divorced, and their marriages are no longer recognized. So California is a very interesting case, and really what's at the holding of that case is it constitutional for a state, any state, to give a right to its people and then take it away arbitrarily? And I think, not just myself, but a lot of jurisprudential academics would say that our democracy is founded on order, and we make decisions based on what we know to be legal. And at that point, gay marriage was legal, and people went and got married, and then all of a sudden, arbitrarily, it got taken away. So now, there's a lot at play there.
I'm talking to attorney Angela Giampolo, who is founder of Giampolo Law Group. And if you wouldn't mind, we have some questions from people, legal questions. Do you have a couple of minutes to answer them?
Absolutely.
Okay,
sure.
So our first question is, how does this affect federal benefits? Go ahead, caller.
Hi. My concern is that I live in Nevada, and I receive domestic partner benefits, so my spouse is able to be covered under my workers under my employer's plan. But if I go to another state, how is that recognized? And recently, within the past year, I want to say there was memes on Twitter and Facebook talking about Sally Ride and her, how the federal law affected her. So I'm wondering if you could comment more on that.
Absolutely. So what is so difficult about, and I mentioned this earlier at the beginning, there's gay law and there's straight law. And what a lot of people like yourself, the listener, is dealing with is you live in a state where there are some benefits, where there's some recognition. But if you literally get in your car and drive, let's say, to New York, you're going to drive through states where you have no legal protection and or rights and benefits. And the current system as it's set up now is some people have certain federal benefits but not state benefits, and other people have certain state benefits and not federal benefits. So specifically, the caller mentioned employer benefits, and so that will really depend upon your employer. But depending on what happens, what the Supreme Court decides with DOMA, if DOMA is repealed, then all of the people who live in a state or the District of Columbia that recognizes gay marriage, so the 9 states in the district, if DOMA falls, if DOMA is repealed, those people will enjoy all of the benefits and the rights of the state that they live in, as well as the 1,138 rights, so survivor benefits, Social Security, inheritance tax exemptions. So, which is why the Prop 8 case is really, really interesting, because if DOMA falls, it will only affect those that live in a state that currently recognizes gay marriage. So for myself in Pennsylvania, we have a mini DOMA. Pennsylvania does not recognize gay marriage. So if my partner and I went to New York, got married where it's recognized, came back to Pennsylvania, and DOMA fell, it would not matter that we are legally married in New York because we currently live in Pennsylvania. So for all the listeners out there, your first question to yourself is, what state do I live in? First and foremost.
So the state law supersedes the federal.
Ultimately, depending on how the Supreme Court rules. But if DOMA falls, whether DOMA is repealed or not, will not affect any of us at the state level unless and until, it really depends how they rule in the Prop 8 case.
Okay, so I think so. So I have a question from Pete in New Jersey. Pete, Welcome to the show. You have a question on the state-by-state considerations that Angela's talking about now.
Yes, just one thing to clarify. It's not that the state supersedes. It's that the federal law recognizes people that are married on the state level. So if your state doesn't recognize your marriage, the federal law wouldn't recognize you as married. But my question is this. I have a family member who they're married, 2 generations ago, but they were first cousins. And it's a very interesting, area of the law because currently 50% of the United States recognize first cousin marriage, 50% don't. And they're married when they're standing in New York, but not when they're standing in Texas. And I want to know if gay marriage will suffer a similar fate if this kind of situation you're talking about happens.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, and that's sort of a joke when North Carolina passed its ban on gay marriage. It's technically legal for first cousins to marry. So first cousins could get married there, but not if they're gay. Is sort of the joke with that. But I don't think, in terms of looking at this in the future, I don't think that same-sex marriage will suffer a similar fate. I think that as you've seen the political and social mores evolving so rapidly, and the people in all of these states, their minds changing on the topic so quickly, in last November, for the first time, the issue of gay marriage went to the ballot in 4 states, and for the first time ever, a ballot initiative was won, let alone 4 times. So I think as social and political mores continue to evolve, I think we'll see more and more ballot initiatives being successful. We just had Colorado signed yesterday. In Illinois, we should have gay marriage soon. And also, just from a sort of academic standpoint, I have my own personal prediction of how this will evolve over the coming years. So currently, we're talking about DOMA, Section 3, being repealed, and I think that will happen. And then we have the Prop 8 case. And I think the Supreme Court is going to rule narrowly on the Prop 8 case, so that when we wake up in June, it'll still be left up to the states. I don't think we're ready yet for a 50 statewide ruling. There are currently 39 mini DOMAs. And so I don't think we're at the point socially or politically where the Supreme Court is single-handedly going to overturn all of those. But there are 2 cases that have been appealed, one in Hawaii and one in Arizona, and they're on their way up to the Supreme Court as we speak. And they should get to the feet of the Supreme Court probably in another 2 to 3 years, maybe 4. And I think at that point, so right now we're at 9 states in a district, so let's say 10 and 40, right, is the 50-state computation. And I think in 2 to 3 years, we'll be at 30-20, if not edging up a little bit more with 22 some odd states. And I think at that point, with the Supreme Court, we'll have a Loving v. Virginia moment, where the ban against interracial marriages was overturned completely. So to answer the listener's question, I think it'll evolve differently than first cousin marriages, and that they're not even to be equated as similar.
Well, we've had lots and lots of calls about this, and if you're still on the line, I'll take your call. Luis Schiavone with you on POTUS on call, 866-96-POTUS. We've been talking to Angela Giampolo. You stayed with us longer than we said you would, but I so appreciate your time. Thanks so much. An attorney in the state of Philadelphia and in the state of Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia, and I have to tell you, I have a daughter in law school, and I was sending an email referring to a female lawyer, and my daughter said, "Do you realize that every time you write down the name of a lawyer, you have got to write Esquire after that?" So, Angela Giampolo, Esquire, very much appreciated. And your law practice is going great guns, it seems.
It's going great. Yep, absolutely. And I just recently, in the last couple of months, moved my office from, a 14th floor skyscraper down to a ground level, gorgeous building in the middle of the neighborhood. So my domain name is phillygaylawyer.com, and Philly Gay Lawyer finally went to the neighborhood in Philadelphia. So the practice is going really well.
So you're at www.gaylawyer.com.
PhillyGayLawyer.com.
PhillyGayLawyer.com. Okay. Well, again, many thanks for the time that you spent talking to us about this issue that is really percolating. Thanks very much.
And I want to thank you for even bringing it to your listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're listening to POTUS on Call. Our Twitter handle, @POTUS on Call. Give us a shout if you want to. 866-96-POTUS, 866-967-6887. Louise Schiavone with you on Sirius XM 124. Coming up after the news, we're going to talk to another expert on the Middle East. And if you didn't have a chance to call us or get your call in during our first session on the President's trip to the Middle East, we welcome your call again. 866-96-POTUS. Louise Schiavone with you. We'll be back.
This is POTUS.
POTUS. Politics of the United States for the people of the United States.
Sirius XM 124.